This is the Fireside chat with Wormhole. Informal, getting to know a little bit more about you, Rachit, Wormhole plans, especially in your kind of role. So maybe we can start with a quick intro, like what do you do at Wormhole, and what regions, what
For sure.
specific factors you.
So I work at the Wormhole Foundation. I lead APAC strategy. That can mean a lot of different things. Primarily, firstly, we're focusing on building a social layer of comms to all the different countries where we want to build presence. That means Hong Kong, that means Korea, that means Vietnam, India, Indonesia, Japan. We're also expanding to LATAM, and that's also core focus for me. In terms of what Wormhole does, Wormhole is an interoperability provider. Very tough word to say. I'm still getting used to it. But yeah, I joined the foundation about 4 months ago.
Awesome. And maybe now digging in, in your view in the Web3 landscape, like what fundamental shifts have you seen which have made interoperability so important today?
I mean, Amit, number of chains. Like, it's so easy to spin up a chain now. So I think the shift you see from like the early, like 4 or 5 years ago to now is the number of chains there are out there are immense. Like for us, we don't like there are interoperability players out there who will take a grant and they'll take some sort of payment structure and they'll integrate a chain. For us, it's always been really strategic, and we've bet on the chains that we've expanded to and integrated to. So now when you have such a high volume of chains coming in, it's the game's changed from, okay, we need to be on these chains, to which chains do we want to be on. So it's fundamentally shifted from the dApp builder as well, but to infrastructure providers as well.
And maybe building on that, like how would you explain the proposition of interoperability in general and Wormhole in specific for both, like maybe say technical audience or CTOs of startups or institutions, as well as on the non-technical side?
For sure. I think there's a really beautiful analogy that I like to give all the time. If you look at modern human history and you look at each inflection point in modern human history, there has been there's been an invention that connects people or connects something that has helped our race evolve. Yeah, not evolve, like advance. Railway systems, the telephone, internet, mobile phones. Similarly, when you think about blockchains, it's this sort of connecting mechanism where you have so many different chains and then they come together with an infrastructure provider like Wormhole, and you're able to build on all the different blockchains together. That is the proposition, and the connectivity side is what I would focus a lot more on.
And maybe now specifically moving to the APAC region. So specifically for APAC region, in your view, as compared to the West, as compared to EME, Europe, what specific challenges, opportunities are you seeing for interoperability Wormhole in this part of the world?
I think zooming out of that, Amit, I think let's talk more about like crypto in general. Like when I used to work at a marketing agency before, and I used to focus a lot more on the global level. And what I noticed was people in the West love to have different narratives, right? Like if something isn't doing 4 or 5 things, they don't want to talk about it. But in APAC, what I thought was really interesting was they really just want to talk about one thing and they associate like every project with one thing. And that's probably the gap between like the main struggle that Western projects have while going into APAC. For Wormhole, for instance, like we do so many like interoperability essentially can plug into anything. Like sure, we do DeFi, we have like $59 billion worth of volume, number one in the industry. We work with a lot of the stablecoin providers like Sky, for instance. We work with institutions like BlackRock. There's so many different things, but then you have to go to all of these countries, understand what the culture is there. So like for instance in Korea, they like the institutional narrative a lot more. In India, the DeFi angle works a lot more. So as an APAC lead, you need to understand your audience and you need to understand who you're targeting to and then establish comms accordingly. And then the BD follows and then all the other community activations follows. But you need to understand that one thing that you really need to double down on in that one region.
Yeah, and I think we were in Hong Kong together. We met like a number of family offices and stuff. So specifically, maybe just that was just a few weeks ago. So building on top, like what maybe we can talk about that as an example. Like any specific things you would like to share about Hong Kong. How that part of the world is going,
For sure.
especially.
Hong Kong is unbelievable. Like it was my first time in Hong Kong and it was a really great experience. every family office either has exposure to Bitcoin, or they want exposure to Bitcoin, or they're exposed to crypto in some sort of LP allocation in some fund. They are now, with regulations getting a lot better, they are now more open to exploring how they can get on chain themselves. And that's where a lot of the tokenization platforms, in my opinion, like we work with the Securitized team a lot, they're based in the States. I think a similar platform in Asia will sort of emerge, and you'll see a lot of these Hong Kong family offices tokenize their funds. The appetite to experiment on chain and hold assets on chain and understand how that works has been phenomenally increased after regulations has gotten better. Hong Kong also, they made it, they mandated for staking to be allowed on an ETF as well. I think they were first, and like we'll probably see the West throughout. Um, I like, it's my personal hot take that we'll actually see crypto shift from the West to the East, and Hong Kong's probably going to be the hub of that, especially for Bitcoin Fi, for sure.
Like huge Bitcoin whales there. Yeah. And maybe just talking about, we chatted about this a little yesterday as well, Sushant. But if you could share, why this focus on institutions, and how are you guys targeting, on the institutional side, partnership from the Wormhole? I know Securitize is there with this Biddle product. We are also working with Google Cloud now. What else? How is the strategy for bringing more institutions on board?
For sure. I think I want to zoom that out again, not just Wormhole focused, but like entire crypto focused. I think the Ethereum Foundation has also started to put a lot more focus on onboarding institutions with Etherealize. They've set up like a separate shop. Solana Foundation themselves spend enormous amount of time. Like Nick, the head of institutions at Solana, he spends a lot of time interacting with these funds. If you are a bigger player in the crypto industry, you need to be spending time with institutions, because that's the only way that this industry will evolve to a point where we'll see retail interest come in as well. The like BlackRock coming in and saying like, hey, we're going to tokenize this fund, and the fund's at like $2 billion now. That's a really big signal, and that's why the Hong Kong family offices are interested as well. They're like, okay, if BlackRock's doing it, maybe there's something there and we should do it. Um, so I think any project that's like sizable, they need to have that angle and interact with those type of players, and that's how we will see the industry going forward.
And maybe on the other side of the table, which we also have a lot of folks here. So you have big institutions like BlackRock. I think we had met another startup which was working with UBS, in
Yeah, DGFT.
DGFT, and I'm sure there'll be several more. I think Sushant mentioned Apollo also coming on chain. So these are all big institutions, kind of on one side. On the other side, as an entrepreneur building a startup, right, and with interoperability in mind, he wants to tap users, liquidity dApps, across ecosystems. Like how does he, what's his value proposition, how does he reach out, or what are you guys doing
Okay.
for the on that side?
So there are two camps, Amit, here, and they're both really interesting. So this is directly from our DevRel team, by the way, and this is feedback that we consolidate pretty frequently. Every builder that's EVM focused either wants to go to Base or either wants to go to Solana. Okay, that's pretty common trend, and we see those requests a lot. Our docs are pretty much catered to solve those, automatically. Solana devs really different. They don't want to go multi-chain. Like they just want to stay on Solana. And the interesting thing is the education is a lot more different there, where you actually have to convince them to a point like, hey, if you go multi-chain and you are tapping into liquidity from other ecosystems, that's actually net positive for Solana. It's not like you're leaving Solana or you're building multi-chain, so you're not Solana native. You are Solana native. But yeah, I thought that was a really interesting thing when the DevRels told me. I was like, yeah, I can see that. I can see a Solana dev say that for sure.
And maybe just expanding from Hong Kong, maybe other regions within APAC, right, like say India or Vietnam or other parts, Singapore for example. Like how do you all like have a different strategy for these each region? How do you all go, and how are you thinking about these regions, or yeah, just the broader APAC?
For sure. So I joined the foundation 4 months ago. The two case studies that I used to sort of formalize our strategy for APAC was, I looked at what Super Team was doing, and Super Team's done the best job. Like if there's a team, like if I ever give APAC advice or regional expansion advice, I'm like, look at Super Team. And I think everyone on CT talks about it, but like no one's been able to emulate it. And then there's Monad. I think Monad's done a really good job of curating these specialized individual communities. So Super Team focuses a lot more on the dev side. They will only talk about empowering builders. They will only talk about Solana and how you can empower those builders. For instance, for Wormhole, it's a little different. Um, we didn't have a Korea lead. We didn't have a Japan lead. We didn't have XYZ person. It was more about representation and establishing comms with users out there. So what that means is in Korea, they like to use Kakao. They like, Telegram's not that big. Like Kakao is like the main platform. So you need to understand how Kakao works, and then you need to create like a community forum there so that people can come in and interact with you there, right? In China, like WeChat's pretty big. So we've tried to figure out like, so there's this interesting thing called WeChat articles. So we try to game that so that we can gain a lot more attention. In India, it's totally different. What the interesting insight was, Indian builders don't want to attend IRL events because there are so many cities in India, and in Bangalore there's already an event, so you can't really go in and sort of make the difference. The difference there is you have all these Indian guys on crypto Twitter, but no one's really posting Indian memes. So we just take like Instagram brain rot and Indian Instagram brain rot, and we post it on Twitter with like a crypto reference. That's when like our portal volumes have like they've gone up significantly as well. And DApp interest of integrating has gone up as well. I think it revolves around the concept of people want to be associated with a cool brand. Like we have this flourishing fellows community now, and like the Indian mascot is called Brijesh, and then everyone will just associate themselves with like, hey, I'm Brijesh, or I'm Wormika, who's like the female version of that. um it's a lot more brand building and culture building is what we're trying to do.
Anything on Dubai? I know a lot of developers from India are also here. Like any trends like that in Dubai?
We haven't specifically curated a program for Dubai. Internal joke that we have is like it's an extension of our Wormhole India thing. So, like one of the ideas I have is maybe we run like a football watch party series for Dubai. Like every Indian builder that I meet in Dubai is also a football fan. Surprisingly, everyone takes the Mickey out of me because I'm a United fan as well. Horrible. But that's also a plan. But okay, so I think Dubai is very interesting because it's very similar to Hong Kong, where you have a lot of family offices, but they're very scattered across like three or four different countries. So if you were to create a strategy for Dubai, it would be focused more on like liquid funds and these family offices rather than focusing on builders inherently, is my opinion.
Makes sense, yeah. And like at Borderless, we are working very closely with Wormhole through our cross chain fund, and like we totally understand the value proposition of cross chain. For example, Securitize working with BlackRock, bringing their fund on chain rather than one chain. Why not do it across 5 chains, which Wormhole is working with? So maybe more tailored for the audience here. As a builder, when you are starting, like why should he think of multi-chain, right? And why should he and in terms of multi-chain, like why should he come and work with Wormhole? And an extension of that, like how should he approach you guys? How should he kind of integrate with Wormhole and so on?
Got it. So last question first. How do you approach? Like, just message anyone on the team. Everyone's super responsive. There's many like if we don't respond to you, we're not doing our job. And I would love to get that feedback. But my take here, and this is something that I would assume a lot of my team members also agree with, is going multi-chain on day one probably doesn't make sense from a point of view where you don't have PMF. Multi-chain probably only makes sense when you have PMF and you're like, okay, we have a model that works, we have revenue on this chain, let's go to 5 other chains and let's try to replicate it, right? Um, the funny thing is, like, whenever I give an example of a chain for people to build on, it's usually Solana. And the reason why I say that is because the Solana Foundation is extremely, extremely supportive. Like the mechanisms they have in place with the super team communities and everything else from the foundation, you are automatically set up for success because you will find your initial users in those communities. You will find support from this foundation giving you BD leads. There are like these numerous NCMOs, like non-CMOs, on Twitter that will always bull post you. So um, I think go multi-chain when you have PMF probably makes a lot more sense. Establish rails so that you have liquidity inflow routes, basically. Like we have this thing called Wormhole SDK. You can integrate it and you can get liquidity from other chains, and it's like a one-click solution, basically. But yeah, I mean, think about multi-chain when you have PMF. Start with Solana.
Time as well. So that was a great chat, Rachit. Thanks for the
Thanks,
time.
Amit.